Excuse me, which one of you gentlemen is Peter Sellers?
Sellers was definitely the great contemporary screen clown. He just nailed being the greatest chameleon-like character actor you'd ever see.
I demand to speak to the person in charge.
I am the person in charge, sir.
Then I demand to speak with you.
You are speaking to me.
He was the comic representation of swinging London.
Meow.
If Peter Sellers made a film of his life, it would be like a Peter Sellers movie. All of the extraordinary ups and downs that he had in terms of marriages, relationships, professional anxieties, all of that's treated somehow in a comic way. He started out in a kind of golden age of British radio in the late 40s, early 50s.
Okay, folks, here they come, and lots of applause, Peter Sellers.
You, sir!
When you listen to the Goons, it just hits you between the ears and you go, this is outrageously erratic and crazy. Even within that show, he created a gallery of half a dozen major recurring characters. Some of those early programs are really timeless.
He was really alive when he played another character and not himself, and was never that comfortable with being himself, I think.
He had this great gift that everyone applauded, but he had no handle on it. He didn't know where it came from. All he hoped was it would turn up when he needed it.
Action.
There's a very famous visual gag in the very first Pink Panther film. He spins the globe while he's thinking and he says, "We must find that woman." He leans on the spinning globe and shoots to the floor. We played it as a scene where you start to see how Blake Edwards and Sellers discover each other, and you can see how Blake thinks, wow. And he turns to the camera operator and says,
Tell me you got that.
I don't think there's anyone who can walk into a film like he used to do and just take it over. He did that with Clouseau, who was supposed to be a tiny bit part in the Pink Panther, and just took over the film.
It shows where he came from and where he started. It then travels through his two marriages to Anne and to Britt in dealing with becoming one of the biggest movie stars the industry ever had. You really truly feel like you're traveling through 50 or 60 years of a person's life.
It's interesting watching this young, flumpy 50s character turn into an international trim movie star. It's a bizarre outing in every way.
he's almost like a man of the time. And when his real celebrity was there in the 70s, he sort of echoed some of the florid madness that was around him.
Linda, I'd like you to meet Stanley Kubrick.
It's nice to meet you.
Stanley was somebody who wouldn't put up with Sellers' shenanigans. I think he knew how to manipulate him, maybe better than anybody.
Oh, now don't be mad at me, Dimitri. Remember that time we were dancing with Natalia? You remember Natalia, the girl with the huge arthritic problem. Sorry, Stan.
If you look at all the films of Sellers' life, they mirror what's going on in his life at the time. I think he didn't realize that. That's why he chose films, and some of the films are terrible.
You get the feeling that he might have been almost creating his own biography in the way that films happen to fall into place.
If he didn't like the film halfway through, he would revert to unhappy, unpleasant.
He'd be playing this part, he'd suddenly feel very uncomfortable.
I was bloody awful up there.
You're blaming me for your performance?
So you agree I was awful?
He would try and ruin the film.
Doctor assures me it's only a hairline crack.
And then when the film came out, he would stop it coming out.
So enjoy the show, if that's at all possible.
Because when he'd see it, he didn't know why, but he'd go too close to his own life, and he'd be seeing himself. And that was not something I think he ever wanted to do.
I think he had great ambivalence about me. I think there was a real love-hate relationship there. There was only the occasion when Sellers had spent all his money and he needed work. We did another Panther, and he had to resurrect himself, so to speak. He was more or less great fun. The other times, he could be hell.
I could never be this broke.
It wasn't easy for me to come here, Peter.
Why did your limousine break down?
Peter Sellers was insecure to the point of a kind of lunacy, and so he needed to find authority somewhere. And Maurice Woodruff was someone whose authority appeared to come from another world. Come, the future is this way. There's a very well-known psychic fortune teller. Fraud is another way of putting it, and he became pretty much indispensable to the studios because Peter Sellers would virtually do nothing without consulting Maurice Woodruff.
I don't know what to do next.
Do it for me. For your mother. Do another Pink Panther. He talked to various people up there, particularly his mother and God, whereas we had a problem on the set one time, and he couldn't get the character, so I called it a day. And at 12 o'clock at night, he called me. And he said, don't worry about the scene tomorrow. I just talked to God, and I know how to do it. The next day, it was so exaggerated and so over the top and mainly not funny. And he came over to me when it was over with, and with a big smile on his face. The Blake Edwards and me came out, and I said, do me a favor, Peter, the next time you talk to God, tell him to stay the hell out of show business.
We thought he was a really funny guy. We didn't realize that there was some messiness in his life.
A lot of people loved Peter Sellers, and people are surprised how difficult and dangerous his life was. He was brought up in such a bizarre way by his mother that he stayed an infant.
Oh, Peter, no one's going to hand it to you. You want success. You've got to go out and take it.
Why was he the way he was? There are loads of occasions where he's jokey and funny and warm, and other moments when he is cuttingly, chillingly cold. And I think he was a disturbed person.
Sometimes he's such an insecure person that he could be very dangerous to people around him.
Oh, Peter, stop it.
Oh, Peter, stop it. Stop it, Peter. Christ, woman, can't you say anything real? First of all, you can't act, and then you can't stop.
He had a lot of demons and a lot of skeletons in his closet. I wasn't really truly aware of all of that. I didn't know that he was as troubled as he was.
Do you still love us?
Of course I do, sweetheart. Just not as much as I love Sophia Loren.
Being an actor, you have to be very thin-skinned and very vulnerable in front of a lot of people over and over again, and that can be painful.
I always believed everybody's a multiple personality, and actors just have access to those personalities.
In every way, I think Peter Sellers was an extreme example of how difficult it is to be an actor and how it affects you. The basis of the idea here is to try and explain his erratic, self-destructive behavior.
If you leave this flat, I'm going to jump off this balcony.
Don't make me any promises, Peter.
All right, I'll meet you downstairs.
Artists have messy lives, and somebody who has that great an ability to do crazy thinking, I think you have to be a bit unhinged to be able to do that in some way. But I think that costs if you don't have a centre to your life.
It was like watching a fully grown human being balancing on the edge of a pin.
Sarah, your father is a useless, talentless, empty man. Did you know that?
Yes, Daddy.
I guess the film is really about Peter Sellers making a film of his own life the way he wanted it to be. The only way that Sellers can ever see himself is through other people's eyes. If he can become these characters who know him really well or have dealings with him, then he can see himself and he can talk about himself, but only as them.
I think the writers got intrigued by the strange world that Peter Sellers seemed to live in.
There's a very clever device that scriptwriters have come up with, which is that Peter Sellers becomes the people around him, the people most important to him.
Geoffrey gets to truly become these characters, and they are real-life characters throughout the script. I mean, pretty much everybody who's co-starring in this film, Geoffrey at some point has to mimic or become.
I'll meet you downstairs.
And cut. Camera's cut. Check the gate.
Could we do it again, please? I didn't quite feel it. I think I had, 20 28 wigs, and sometimes I would be, made up prosthetically and with body padding to be chubby, and I would end up gaunt and old. We wanted to affect a certain profile with